Hey, Kevin, nice to see you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Stroke. I am your host and stroke survivor, Jerry Wall. And again, for those of you that are new here, I started doing this show to bring awareness to stroke, TBI, aphasia, brain injury, and also to provide a platform for survivors to share their journeys from literally across the world. And and bring on experts in brain health so they can share their knowledge with us so we can learn more. So this morning, my guest is Vanessa Kelly, and she's, I think, a couple years out um, post stroke, but she's very inspiring. We had a long chat yesterday. Everything worked perfectly when we are getting on. Good morning, Musan. And we were trying to get on this morning, so she's having a little difficulty, but I'll just mumble my way through. I don't want to give you all the stuff about her because she is, you'll get a lot out of this and be very motivated. So, and please, if you haven't, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's Talk Stroke. There's a little thing down there. It says subscribe. But anyway, I hope you're all doing well. It's been kind of a crazy morning, crazy evening. Love to know if you guys are how you guys are doing. Good to see you guys, and I appreciate you being here. So I will see if Vanessa is ready. I can see her in my screen here. You guys can't, but anyway, I will bring her on in just 1 second. I think it's a little frozen still, but let's go ahead and get started. So hang tight and relax and please ask questions to Vanessa or me, but Vanessa is the guest, so please ask questions to her. Welcome her. She's amazing. So sit back and let's get this started. Boy, I'm being very click happy here. But anyway, let's go ahead and bring on Vanessa, and we will get the show started. There you are. Woohoo!
Hi, Jerry. How are
All
you?
right. Good. How are you doing? You're on
Um,
the iPhone right now.
yes.
Uh,
Yeah, it works on the phone. So,
right. Well, good. I'm glad to see you there. I know it's probably going to be a little more difficult when you're not on your Mac or any computer besides an iPhone. You probably won't be able to see the uh, the comments a lot, but I can bring them up like I mentioned earlier, and but I'm sure that just let me know right now. Can you see it's probably very small.
yeah, it's very micro, but I'm happy to answer questions if you kind of pose them for me.
Right, right. No worries. But anyway, yeah. Thank you guys for being here, Robin, Bruce. There are a lot of people. Musong, um, Kevin Harmer is here. Lynette Price. They're all saying hello to you. So just let you know
Hi,
that.
guys.
And they're still coming in. So let's just get into it. Who was Vanessa before your infamous day, your brain injury?
Well, Vanessa was a busy mother of two and a wife, and um, I had no idea uh, anything to do with stroke, brain aneurysms. Um, I mean, I was hit pretty hard by this because I was completely clueless when it happened, even what was going on at the time.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy. And how far out or post stroke are you?
I'm a little over 2 years. So
Wow.
it happened in September of 2022 while I was sick with COVID. So I mean, I just look back at just the last 2 years. I know you're like what 12 or 14 years past yours, and
Yes.
the progress that I've made is it just is a testament to the ability for the brain to heal itself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And do you know what caused it?
Well, there's speculation. I had just started a round of Paxlovid because I was infected with COVID, and that was what was recommended. And it's a very rare side effect that it can really push up your blood pressure. So I took it like 12 o'clock that day, and literally less than 8 hours later, I had my ruptured brain aneurysm at home while I was in bed.
Wow.
And of course, the medical profession won't confirm or deny that, but I feel like there was some correlation because I didn't have blood pressure in the 200s prior to taking this medication.
Right. Right. That's crazy. So how it happened in the you probably just said it when the memory problem. Did you it happened in the middle of the night or just
So it happened about 8:30 in the night. And I wasn't feeling well. I had already taken my evening bath, hoping that would kind of make me feel a little bit better because being infected with COVID isn't fun to begin with.
right?
And I got this really horrible headache pain. And many weeks prior, I was having chronic migraine. So I had some idea that something wasn't right in my head, but we were fighting with the insurance to get an MRI approved to see if there was some, which I had an 8 millimeter unruptured brain aneurysm. And I mean, it's really, I was kind of looking at your story the other day, and it's very similar in a sense that I felt in the back of my head like an explosion. Like
Yeah.
I felt a release of like energy, and I knew something wasn't right, but I was so naive, I had no idea that that was literally either life or death time frame for me.
Right. Right. So from then, did you go to the hospital or you just
Well, so at that point in time, I started screaming to my husband, who had come home early from a business trip to Cleveland, Ohio.
right?
And I said, "Oh my gosh, help me, help me, help me. I'm feeling bad." Well, he saw the entire left side of my body had gone limp. I was paralyzed because it was a hemorrhagic stroke. And then I wanted to throw up. So he ran to get a trash can. He called 911. And within the 5 minutes or so of the EMTs headed to the house, I like lost my vision. Everything went pitch black.
Wow.
The only other thing I can compare it to is if you've ever been to like a mining shaft
Mhm.
and you're deep in the ground, that kind of blackness.
Wow.
But I was still awake. So it was such a strange, like eerie feeling
Yeah.
to lose your vision, but still like hear things and, hear your husband on the phone describing your symptoms. And I never saw the EMTs. I blacked out. They had to revive me before they got me to the hospital. And um, that was something I had a hard time making peace with because I've always been a very present person. I never wanted to lose control over, situations I was in. So I was literally just passed out for days. Like it took almost 10, 12 days for me to be conscious and aware that I was even in the ICU.
Right. Right. Yeah, I know that feeling. Wow. Wow. So after you woke up, they probably tossed you right into rehab.
Well, so that's the interesting thing. Mine is a little bit different than yours. Mainly, there was no availability of beds in the surrounding area of where I live in Idaho, and also in Seattle, Washington, where I
Oh,
was airlifted to from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. So I was offered the idea that, okay, we're going to send you home with referrals to speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, follow up with your PCP. And so I picked and choose which therapies I needed at that very moment. And the big thing that I needed was physical therapy.
right, right. Wow. Wow. So that's really the main thing you worked on, because I know in the hospital or when you have a stroke, brain injury, the three, the OT, PT, and speech is what they just really concentrate on. But yours was PT, physical therapy.
Well, and I found a wonderful physical therapist in my little town of Post Falls. He's since retired, so I was like one of his last patients, but
Oh,
um he worked 2 or 3 times a week in the first month. We worked on my neck and my head to unlock it because it was as tight as a board. Like your body, your nervous system is like still in that fight mode.
right, right.
And so that was his focus. And boy, I mean, it could be painful at times, but
Oh, yeah.
once that was unlocked, it was like all the fluid in my ears and everything started to drain again.
Wow.
And the only other therapy that I worked on early on, because I had this great desire that somehow I was going to fix myself. I went to the occupational therapist, and she did like a general assessment to figure out like my memory and things like that. Although your neuropsychologist, that's a great person to
Yeah,
consider for bigger things like that. But I I thought somehow I was broken, and if I would hurry up and go see a specialist as soon as possible and do all the therapies recommended, the crosswords, whatever, that somehow I would just miraculously become the same as my baseline before this happened to
right.
me.
Yeah. You're thinking it'd
And
be brand new.
unfortunately, I had to face the reality that I have a new baseline now. And it doesn't make me less of a person by any means, but I am not so focused on, oh my gosh, I've got to hurry up and fix this stuff or undo what's done to me. Like, I just have to do things differently now. It's not like it matters. You're not being graded on what you can and can't do, but if you're really hard on yourself, like I was prior to this,
Right,
it's a really hard transformation you go through. It's like you go from being the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland, and eventually, poof, you become something completely different.
right, right. Wow. Yeah. So how's it? Because I always wonder. Everybody's talked to them. Just to let you know, there's still a ton of people out here that are saying hello again. And I know Serena. I know Serena really well. She's from Nova Scotia, Canada. She's strange how strokes can be so similar yet so completely different. Yeah, absolutely. So, do you drive?
I do. And I will say, you and I talked a little bit, like you're right. I think it's your right side that was impacted, which is
Yeah,
also the right side, I believe, is the language part of the brain is in the right side as well. Mine was my left side.
right.
So if it would have been in reverse, I probably would not be able to drive because my left leg and foot still I mean I'm completely mobile, but there are times when I tell that foot like go up the step and it just doesn't,
Yeah,
lift like it used to.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Have you ever had any falls?
I have not. Knock on wood, cross my fingers. I do make sure like I have walking sticks when I go on hikes or uneven terrain. I like to have an extra support. And of
Absolutely.
course, when I got home from being bedbound for 3 weeks in the ICU, I came home with a walker because like my muscles atrophied,
Right.
right? You're so weak, like you can't walk. I That was such a dark and scary place to be.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
certainly, I mean, no one can prepare you for what that feels like.
Not at all. But it's an emotional battle too, and that's a big part of this.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then at the same time, everybody's telling you how lucky you are that you survived. And of
Right,
course, yeah, I realized that the odds were against me even surviving through the surgery, right? With the vasospasms and the things that can go wrong after the neurosurgeon has done everything 100% perfect, right?
right.
But yeah, it's interesting to kind of see how I've evolved as a person through this unexpected medical trauma that, I mean, man, there's so few people in the world that know what that feels like.
I know, I know. We do know. That's a great. Not a. I'm trying to say it the nice way. But since you had a stroke and whoever's out who had a stroke, we know what we're going through. You know, it's a lot of work. And there's also another question here, if you don't mind me. Um, it says, "Are you?" I have to bring it up, Serena. Sorry, I just can't. Uh, ask the question here. Are you happy with what you have gained back?
Um, for me, I would say yes. And I've actually become a more physically active person than I was prior to this happening to me. I know you have that picture of me with my bike helmet on. Um, I wasn't, I mean, I've ridden bikes in the past, but I found that riding my bike, um, I almost feel like I'm floating and I'm like a normal person when I'm on that bike because it kind of evens out the left side and right side, the left side being more weak than the right side.
Right.
And it also kind of gets me out of being inside and avoiding, you know, being around other people. Like, I find it like my energy gets drained so quickly in really loud, noisy environments.
Yeah,
And I know that's some sort of stroke aftermath, but because I used to be somewhat of a social butterfly, and now I've become like a writer and a advocate for other survivors. Like, they just don't tell you what you need to know when you leave the hospital. And I feel like you and I and everybody else, we need to work on coming up with a solution for that.
yeah, exactly. That's so true. I've been, I do go to hospitals, rehab centers because they don't. For me, that's my 2 cents worth. Is they don't when you leave the hospital. For the most part, it's like see you later. Work on this exercise or something. I don't think we're given enough of information about that. Um, are you, Kevin here? Loftus says, "Are you working?"
So prior to this, I was working. My background's in interior design, and I was working for a big cabinet company in Washington State as a kitchen cabinet designer.
Nice.
But I actually got fired from that job because of my migraines and having to miss a fair amount of work because I could not cope. The migraines were so bad.
Right.
And since then, I cannot spend a lot of time on a screen. Concentration levels are a lot shorter than they were. I mean, I probably had ADD beforehand anyway, but it's a
Yeah.
lot worse now.
Right.
So I've kind of morphed into more of an advocate for stroke survivors, brain injuries, brain aneurysms,
Right.
because I just kind of like what you're doing. I want to help other people because when I got home, I mean, I felt like a unicorn.
Yeah.
Have yet to meet another aneurysm rupture survivor in person where I live.
Right. Yeah.
And then where I came from is 4.5 hours away in Seattle. And, I tried sending messages, and most of the time the response is either go to the ER, which I don't want to do, or follow up with your PCP. This is outside of our, this isn't in our lane.
Right. Right. Uh,
So then what options do you have? You can go on Facebook or places where there's support groups and pose your questions to other people.
right.
And a lot of that, I'm amazed at how much information, or at least validation, like, oh wow, yeah, you're suffering survivor's guilt, or yeah, you have neurofatigue, or man, you're not out of the woods yet.
Right. Right.
Right? Like it's so empowering to have access to other survivors.
It's wonderful, wonderful, because I thought I was alone, the only one that had a stroke at my age. And then I found all this going on, and one thing led to another, and now here we are doing this, and it's so gives me hope. And like you said, validation for other survivors out there, and sharing their stories and seeing a lot of similar stuff. We're all unique. They're all different stories, but we have a lot of the similar, um, I say, issues or you know,
Well, and you know, I'm just really, I want you to know, like, people like yourself, I'm 2 years out for mine. You're 10 years
14.
beyond, like 12 years beyond where I'm at. And we're all on our own journeys.
Right,
But seeing someone like yourself who said, like, you literally had to go through all the therapies, learn how to speak again, learn how to walk, like activities of daily living type things.
right,
You are an inspiration for people like myself that when we're having really bad days, we know there are people ahead of us that have been successful and have figured out how to navigate
yeah,
living post stroke.
right, exactly. So true, so true. And just to go back a little, how did your family take it when they figured out, well, why you're being airlifted to a hospital, your ambulance to what's going on with mom?
Well, so my son was in high school at the time, and I don't think he knew what to think of it. But my daughter was, I believe, in the fourth grade when it happened. And when I got back home, she followed me around like she was my pet dog, because she just did not understand
Yeah,
what happened to this person that has been in my life since I've been born.
right,
And
exactly.
she's also special needs. She has autism. So I think it was that much harder for her to
Wow,
have that whole pattern upended, right?
right, right,
And
exactly.
then I did have family members from my husband's side. They coordinated together to fly here because my husband had to drive to Seattle to be with me after my surgery. And then, it was like you start to realize really quickly later on who in your family cares and wants to get involved when the worst possible outcomes can happen,
Right,
and who just is physically or emotionally or mentally just not there.
right. And you're talking about family, which is,
Right.
through. I mean, I've seen this happen a lot. Through thick and thin.
Thick
When
and thin.
thick and
The
thin.
blood runs thicker. Yeah.
Yeah, and then people just leave there. I didn't sign up for this. I've heard this a lot. But
Well, and I will say I've been very blessed to have a wonderfully supportive husband. We're going to 22 years of marriage next June. Um, a mother-in-law who literally like dropped her whole life for close to 2 months to run the household because that was my role,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
Like getting the kids to school, making sure everybody's fed, paying the bill.
Yeah.
Like the, somebody had to step in on that, right?
Yeah.
While I was recovering because I couldn't even walk up the stairs to my bedroom without assistance.
Right. I understand completely. Um, you were airlifted,
Yes. And
and
I do not remember any of it, but boy, did I get that bill.
because there's a comment out here, says were outcharged for your were you charged for your air transport? And then he was saying, I was billed $72,000, and I mean, who can really afford that as a stroke survivor? That's
Well, I want to let him know I had to go through 3 appeals processes with my private insurance to finally get my air bill paid. And it was over like $58,000.
yeah. I mean,
And it was just one thing after another, and finally it got reversed. But it's like you're trying to heal and you're being given like, and I got little bills here and there that weren't settled with the insurance, right, for an ambulance, or things were miscoded, and it was like, oh my gosh, I am just trying to exist.
right, you're on your deathbed and you have to worry about
And
that.
these people are harassing me about, their own errors, right? I mean,
Yeah.
most of it's like billing errors, and they're threatening to ruin my credit.
Right.
And it's like, oh my God, oh, I'm so lucky to be alive right now. Now
Yeah.
I have to like call and talk to these people that, they don't even understand what it's like to live with a brain injury.
Absolutely, no one does. It's he's Kevin. This says that it took more than 6 months to resolve it.
Well, good for him. Mine took nearly 2 years. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this system has got to be worked out.
Yeah, exactly. Um, here, not sure if you know or not, but Lynette Price is saying, "Amen." I'm 22 years post rupture and learned so much more for others survivors, having people who get it, what I feel. That's right. I mean, I see so many comments. If I don't bring them up or get it, I apologize because there's so many. But there's a ton. I see these, but yeah, it's. I mean, going through what we're going through is it. I mean, it's not just people don't understand. Going out. I mean, I've had it so many times. We talked about this. Um, I don't know. In the beginning, oh yeah, I had a stroke. Well, you don't look like you had a stroke.
Oh, it's an invisible
Well,
disease.
yeah, what are you supposed to
And
look like?
it really, in some ways, it gives me empathy for those other people that have chronic issues that aren't visible. And we shouldn't be so quick to make judgments on how a person is just by appearance alone.
Right.
And there's
Exactly.
such a mental health part of this that needs to be addressed too, because depression is a huge problem with recovery when you start to realize like your wishful thinking or working 150% or 200%, you're not seeing the gains that you think you should be seeing from who you were prior.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I understand that. But the good thing is, are you taking videos of yourself? Some of this stuff, because I now look back at the ones I did, thinking, wow, even if it's a tiny little gain, I move my fingers or whatever, you know, we make those gains, even if they're small. You look back and I do that just for that reason, not just to show off. I'm whatever, but it helps me show that I'm actually recovering, even if it's 14 years.
Yeah, so I don't think I told you this, but for some reason, shortly after I got back from the ICU and I was more in wakeful hours, not sleeping and taking meds
Sure.
all the time, I decided that I wanted to start writing down, like journaling, the different
Okay.
feelings that I was experiencing. And then I had it on my laptop, so it was being time stamped.
Nice.
And so, what I kind of concluded from the first year or so of doing that was I was literally going through all the stages of grief. And it wasn't in the exact order that, the psychologists or the mental health community kind of lays it out, but it validated, oh my gosh, I have reason to be angry. I have reason to be sad. I do all this what if my husband wasn't home when that happened, right?
Yeah, I know that. I hate that.
And so, in a sense, I didn't do videos until recently. I started to do videos on that Brain Aneurysm Warriors group on Facebook.
Right.
And it's more just general topics. I try to keep them under 3 minutes because of attention spans and my own attention
I know.
span. Um, but I look back at these journals on my laptop and I think, oh my gosh, I know who that Vanessa was.
Right.
And that's not the Vanessa that I am right now. So I've evolved from the painful places.
Right. Right. Exactly. And also regarding the I know Stephen Albright says that's exactly why I highly recommend to new survivors record as much as possible.
Yes. I totally agree with that. And it was like a part of my brain was activated that had been dormant, which is very strange because I wasn't really into writing since my college years.
Right.
And then I also started painting again, and I garden, I do all of these like creative type things, but um it's helpful even if you don't share I mean, most journaling is just for yourself, right?
Yeah.
But it's helpful to kind of see, oh my gosh, this is all lining up. And then I just had that epiphany moment like, wow, I've gone through all the stages of grief. And sometimes the anger resurfaces
Yeah.
or the depression comes back.
Yeah.
But I can identify it now with words.
Wow. Wow. That's great. Yeah, 'cause I find for me when it comes back, when the depression is, if I'm doing nothing, then it just, I start thinking the
Mm-hmm.
worth, and so I have to
Downward
keep myself
spiral.
busy. Yeah. So I don't know if you feel like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and I see that in myself. And then the other thing that I highly recommend for those who, can be somewhat mobile, gosh, go outside and get a breath of fresh air.
Right.
If you can walk a block to the mailbox and back, or just, walk in your backyard or in your neighborhood safely, that movement I feel helps move through some of the negative emotions that surface or
Yeah.
questions that you can't answer.
Right. Right. So what do you tell somebody that's like a newbie survivor going through it? I mean, what do you tell them? Things do get better. I mean, may not be quickly, but you can't promise it. I mean, what would you tell somebody who's going through what we went through in the beginning?
I try to say be kind and good to yourself, and this is a journey, it's not a race.
Right.
And that was like shared with me early on when I started posing questions when I was a new survivor on a Facebook support group.
Right.
And the other thing that I think is helpful is everybody's trying to rush to get on a supplement or do this therapy or that therapy. The brain needs a lot of time to heal.
Yeah.
What happened to you may have happened in a matter of seconds, but the recovery from that damage, I mean, I've read that it can take up to 10 years to maximize what your brain's final healing point is. And it's constantly trying to build new neuropaths. And the brain is an amazing muscle.
So true. I've known a lot of people that have like been on my show, but I know neuroplasticity and how your brain will rewire itself forever because we lost millions and millions of miles of you know we've lost a lot of
Brain cells.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so trying to rewire that all, which is, I mean, it's great to see how that all works. I mean, I've seen it. Well, I see it 14 years, and I know Lynette up here is 22 years out, and she's had. I'm sorry if you're still watching Lynette. At least 8 strokes, a bunch of craniotomies. I mean, and she's a fighter. She's a good person. And you're right, Stephen. Your only competition is yourself. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, it's but and also said, weather permitting, I get to go out on my trike. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you like you're left-sided affected? So do you feel? Because I know on me, do you feel what do you call it? Like the
Pins
weather.
and needles.
That too, yeah, exactly. And if it's really cold out, are you affected? Because I start shaking a little.
I haven't noticed shaking or anything. I will say I get really bad headaches
Yeah,
when storms are coming through or system pressure changes,
yeah,
atmospheric pressure change. And my husband claims that I'm like his weather vane
yeah,
because I'll like feel it in my head before it actually is even like being talked about in the morning news.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
will say I do better in cold than I do in heat.
Okay, yeah. I think it's the opposite for me, but everybody is different, and that's why I always say I have so many different people on this show. Everyone out of the hundreds and hundreds of I've done, um, everybody's different, but similar type of situation. So yeah, I totally understand.
So I live in the right area. I'm up in Idaho,
Yeah,
so it's cold a fair amount of the time. The summers are kind of brutal, but this time of year with the cloud cover, I'm very light sensitive still.
yeah.
It's easier for me to cope in the cooler months.
Yes. Well, that's good. I mean, for me, it's the opposite, but that's okay. We talked yesterday, and this happens to me all the time. If an ambulance comes by, screaming, and that kind of gets me thinking, oh, we're going back in time.
Hmm.
You go through that?
I do. I've been diagnosed with the post traumatic stress disorder. And I do have regular counseling sessions.
Good.
So I do cognitive behavioral therapy. And um, I find that there's certain things that kind of trigger me. I do not like going to ERs. I don't like being in medical facilities for any type of testing.
Right.
Even though I was unconscious and unaware, obviously I have some memory. My body has a memory of that time. And so I've had to kind of work on my awareness when I do have to go do MRIs or CT scan, like follow up imaging,
Yes.
and work on breathing and telling myself, like, lightning doesn't hit the same place twice. Like rational things, because I can just spiral back, and it almost feels in some ways like I've lived in a time warp because all this time has passed, but certain things can just bring me right back to that moment in time, and I relive what I experienced.
Wow. Yeah. It is unbelievable. So do you also or you take, because I do a lot. Do you take meds for no seizures and none of that, or because
Right now, I have to take a baby aspirin every day to keep my blood thin because
Sure.
I have a stent with my coiling. I have blood pressure medication,
Yeah.
and I have a few other things that I take as needed. But one of the things that's kind of surprised me is once you start going to see specialists, they kind of want to promote, take this, take that,
Yeah.
take another, and then all of a sudden you start getting like these weird side effect. And I am a side effect person, right?
Right.
Like I had a reaction to Paxlovid, so I'm really kind of uh hesitant to add another drug to my daily dosing that I have to do, right?
Right. Right.
And so I do a lot of alternative therapy, which
Right.
you and I kind of talked about yesterday.
Mhm.
I'm a big believer in meditation. I believe in regular exercise. I do acupuncture
Yeah.
and cupping too, which is kind of something that the acupuncturist is trained in as well. And it helps with sleep, my headaches. Believe it or not, the acupuncture has helped a lot with my
Yeah.
headaches.
Yeah. Interesting, because I've never done that, and we talked about it, and I've heard a lot of good things about it, which is great. I don't know if I haven't done it yet, so but I've
You
heard
just
good things.
need you need to find one that's trained, that, has some background with stroke care. And I mean, they all have special certifications, right? Like you
Yeah,
don't just
absolutely.
go to anybody who says, "Oh, sure, I'm an acupuncturist."
Yeah.
And a
And
lot of insurance covers acupuncture now.
wow. Wow, that's good to know that. Um, well, I lost my train of thought, but it sounds like, oh, what I was going to say is when my neurologist, whoever it is, like you said, prescribes another medication, I have to do another one. And I always go to my pharmacist. I mean, I suggest that. I'm not a, obviously, I'm just a regular old guy. But I recommend go to the pharmacist and ask them, will this interfere with any of the meds that I take? And
Oh yeah, my pharmacist, and it's ironic because the pharmacist had asked if I had high blood pressure before I got that Paxlovid
ah,
medication, even though the doctor had already prescribed it for me.
right,
And I was borderline hypertensive without treatment, correct?
right.
So, the pharmacist did bring that up,
But you
but,
still take it. Yeah.
you do what you do, right? It's that whole what if thing.
I know. It's kind of crazy. Wow, it's amazing. I mean, I mean, you'll have to go back and rewatch to see some of these comments because there's so many. Like Catherine Jordan here saying, even massage therapists have a certification for different therapies.
Yes,
Thank you, Kate.
that's true.
Yeah.
That is true. Gosh, and I see we're almost running out of time, so maybe we could do a part two or a part three one day.
Oh, I'd love to. That I'm well, since I don't work. I mean, it's but I do these two same days, very consistent. Tuesday, Thursday, um, 10 a.m. my time, Central Time. And I do appreciate everybody here that's watching, commenting, because I do see on my other screen here, a lot of people are, what do you call that, watching, and I appreciate that. Good morning, Brad, and not making comments, and that's all good. That's all good. So, but I do really appreciate you sharing your journey because I know there's a lot more we didn't cover. We talked about yesterday about
Oh
really
yeah.
spreading awareness. That's like the biggest
Oh,
thing.
well, and like I told you, I wish you were assigned a case manager that really got deep into like calling you up every day to find out how are you doing?
Right,
What's working, what isn't working. Like if they can't bill the insurance, they're not going to I mean that's why I feel like there's this hole that needs to be filled by some, I mean, it would be great if it was people who had survived strokes that have been through it that,
Right.
can say, "Oh my gosh, yeah, that's normal," or "No, maybe you should go to the ER." I mean,
Yeah.
corresponding with the neurosurgeon's office is great and dandy, but in the long run, and their short answer is go to the ER.
Right.
And
Right.
I'm not going to go to the ER. I've spent plenty of days in the
And
hospital.
I agree 100%. I was, like I said, I was embarrassed that I had a stroke. First of all, I would never go to a stroke support group. I'd hide behind people. But now I go to the all the time now. I've really
That's
changed that,
great.
and just trying to, let them know, things do get better. Can't promise how much better, but about the positivity and never give up. And because, as you know, when you're first a stroke candidate or whatever, you are feeling like how you're feeling. It's
You feel
depressing.
like you've been hit by an 18-wheeler and maybe like the ugliest cat in the the
Yeah,
Humane Society
yeah,
with the tattered ear and not
yeah,
eating and full of fleas.
yeah,
That's about
exactly.
how I felt.
Yeah. Oh, me too. I didn't realize how angry I was until my daughter, a couple of years ago, we talked about us writing a book, and she's telling me, Dad, you were so angry, pissed off at life. You were really, and I didn't know that. I didn't know all that little stuff like that. But so that's why I'm.
Well, and the other thing too, just final another memory I have that when you're in the ICU those first 10 days after your surgery, they are checking you every hour on the hour. You're getting no sleep whatsoever. They're making sure that you don't have any symptoms that something went awry.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I mean, being sleep deprived for 10 plus days, that can really impact your outlook on everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I don't know about you. I had to eat mush in the first. They don't give you a steak or whatever, and you're having stuff that's blended.
Ensure.
Yeah, yeah, all
Yeah.
that. But yeah, but yeah, I definitely would love to write Stephen. Thank you for sharing. And he says feels like you were hit twice. That's how you feel. You know, he said hit.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's really but yeah, that's but yeah, we'll definitely obviously stay in touch and look at your progress, and let's figure out. We'll talk off the air about when we could do it again.
Oh,
It'd be
for
great.
sure. No, and thank you so much. And thank you to all of your viewers too, to take the time out of your day to listen to bits and pieces of my story.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're not done. So, but yeah, I appreciate you being there here too. So, um, really appreciate it. And you could stay on for just a second, but thank you guys all for being here, and thank you everybody's been here making comments, and I appreciate the ones that are watching. And that's awesome. So, thank you again for being here. We'll see you on is today Thursday? Yeah, so Tuesday next week.